Podcast with myself and my homie right over there. And as you can see, it's 9 o'clock, military time. My man Santa over there. Welcome to the Check Swing Podcast. Thank you for being with us. It's the podcast on YouTube. Um, while I have your attention and while we're thinking about it, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/New Twist Radio. You can catch all of the let me fix my camera here. There we go. You can find all of the Check Swing episodes there. You can comment on them. You can like them, thumbs up them. You can share them. Please do. Actually, please do.
Thumbs up them. I gotta use that.
Thumbs up them. Yeah, yeah, thumbs up them. um, but with all that being said, you know how I like to start the show. I like to start off the show by saying, "How you been, brother?"
Been well, sir. Good morning. How are things?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I can't complain. You know, when we do this show, I'm especially happy and pleased because it's my Friday on my regular work schedule. It's Friday for me. So um
It's still Wednesday for me.
yeah, for you it's Wednesday. Yeah, sorry to hear that. I mean, I got other stuff to do, but it's Friday for the one job. But
It's
anyway,
stuff that gets you paid. Yeah, I got you. I got you.
with all that being said, we have a new segment that we're going to introduce today in just a little bit. But before we do that, we did want to talk about a few things going on in the sports world that have caught our attention. One, I believe we may have mentioned. Well, first of all, last week we mentioned we were talking to Coach V, um, Coach V and Afia Lewis. Thank you again for them for being on the show, talking about athletes and mental health and discipline and things of that nature. So definitely, if you haven't had a chance to check that show out, go ahead and check out that show and learn something, comment on something, give us your opinion, give us your thoughts, and give us your experiences. Um, with that being said, I want to move on to a topic that is it's sensitive, right? It's a sensitive topic only because um, the outcome of the incident, and I'm talking about the Henry Ruggs the third incident, wide receiver for the or former wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, and he was involved in an incident where he was, suspected to be under the influence of alcohol, driving at very high speeds. It was reported that he was driving at about 156 to 158 miles per hour. His car then slammed into another car, um, causing that car to explode and a young woman and actually a dog on the inside of that car uh, died. A very unfortunate incident, very sad incident. And, prayers go out to everybody involved in that because I know he didn't wake up that morning planning on killing somebody. I know she didn't wake up that morning thinking that it was her last day on earth. But, with that being said, Miguel, I'll open up the floor for you to give your thoughts on that before we, have the opportunity to go into our new segment. So I'll open the floor on that. And I got actually another topic I want to ask you about in right after that we didn't discuss pre show, but I'll just kind of throw it on you real quick to talk about. But Henry Ruggs III, your thoughts, Miguel?
No, it's a tough piece, especially now. Now the story is starting to come out. I believe the 911 tape is out now, and I think there was a surveillance video of the incident. At least the last final seconds, it shows a car kind of going like 25 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you see it just like that, just at the flash of a moment. You see the car going 110, 15 miles an hour. Um, it's a tough piece because you wonder when people are under the influence, sometimes it's for different reasons. They're escaping something, so you're wondering, was this an escape from something? Was it just one night that just so happened got out of hand? So I'm curious to kind of sit back and read more as the investigation goes and see what actually does come out. And I was kind of not surprised, but it was pretty swift for the Raiders to almost immediately let him go. Usually they kind of withhold judgment and wait for the full investigation to you know do its thing and get all the findings, but they were just completely done with him. And also, he actually has been getting some support. There's been some reports. I think between the social media feeds. Devontae Smith, who he played with at was it Alabama or Oklahoma? I always forget.
Alabama.
Alabama, because they had the same colors. They always mix me up. But they were teammates, and Devontae Smith, expressed support for his brother, and there's a lot of backlash in Eagles Nation. They're like, he's your brother, but he killed somebody. He's a murderer. So you know, this is an interesting dynamic, and I guess we're gonna find out more over the next few months, because then you also have a situation where after the Super Bowl. And I believe a lot of people have forgotten Andy Reid's son.
Before the Super Bowl.
It was before the Super Bowl, wasn't it?
Mhm.
So he rear-ended somebody, and there was a young child involved, and I believe she was critical for quite some time, and he was under the influence.
Mhm.
Um, and to my knowledge, the last I saw, he's still. I don't believe he was formally fired per se, but I believe he's taking time off from the team.
I think I think he was let go. I'm not
I think
positive.
it was. Yeah, I
I
think
think
you're right.
I
I just
think
trying to remember because I just thought about that like just now. Um,
yeah, I
yeah.
think he was let go. I'm not positive on it, but I think he was. But two incidents that very unfortunate. For everyone involved, especially the people close to the victims, the deceased. And I don't, this show is not going to be a sad show. All right, we're going to have some fun on this show. It's just that we just wanted to make mention to that. One other thing I wanted to mention before we move forward: we are a baseball show, but we touch upon all sports, right? Congratulations, Atlanta Braves, for winning the World Series. Um,
I
Aaron
think.
Rodgers.
Say again.
Aaron Rodgers.
Uh-oh.
Very interesting. I'm interested in your take on this, but a very interesting, I guess, week it's been for him. Right? Comes down, test positive for COVID. Allowed people to believe he was vaccinated. Um, has not been vaccinated, and I guess lied to a lot of people. Now, part of me blames the Milwaukee media, the Green Bay media, for this because there is a big part of me that feels like, and I'm not blaming them for what Aaron Rodgers did. I'm blaming them for not getting to the bottom of what he said. I would have to believe that in bigger media markets, in LA,
Mhm.
maybe LA, New York probably for sure, Philly for absolute sure. When he said yes, when the question was posed to him, "Are you vaccinated?" and his answer was yes, I'm immunized. There's no doubt in my mind a Philly reporter would have asked him to elaborate on that, on the wording that was clever wording by him, and they didn't jump on it, which allowed him to get away with the lie. How do you feel about that? Like, I mean, how do you feel about what I said about the media not being on top of it?
I mean, yeah, it's spot on because I mean, the Philly media is trying to find out everything that isn't even important. So it's definitely a different dynamic. I mean, you think about like, all right, we'll pick on the New York media and all the coverage with Derek Jeter, even though he was kind of relatively, um, I wouldn't say scot free. He wasn't an angel per se, but he lived a relatively, I don't even want to say spotless, but he didn't have any scandals. Let's put it. He was the Obama of New York Yankees, I guess you could say, right? But it wasn't, Milwaukee. If he was in Milwaukee, all the reporters would be asleep when he would be out. But New York, they, run a rotation of paparazzi in the subways and in trash cans and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But but yeah, I think different city. I think it definitely would have got a lot more. He would have got a lot more heat put on him, and maybe the story would have actually broke even sooner. Based on the information that's out now. But I'm curious to know because I believe he said he gets wisdom from his own doctor and Joe Rogan. So I don't know if Joe Rogan is a pseudo doctor, but um,
Now, I would put this out here for the public to answer. Aaron Rodgers believed in using alternative medicine. I believe that would be the best way to classify that. Using alternative medicine. He said he claims he was allergic to something in the vaccine. Um,
as a lot of people are.
and he, therefore cannot take the vaccine. Um, so it's an alternative medicine. There is there is a man who passed away a couple years ago named Dr. Sebi, who was I don't know if you would classify him as alternative medicine, but he was big on the clean eating and you know and letting your body take care of itself in a sense.
Right.
Is there any difference in your mind about people following what Dr. Sebi says and Aaron Rodgers following whoever he's following?
So here's my take on alternative medicine because I have experienced it with my own eyes and my own body. So I would have to say that I believe in alternative medicine. So, like for instance, I had this real bad heel injury, or I have this inflammatory issue that I take medicine for, and I kept having this real nasty, heel spur kind of thing, and it would cause me to have fits that if I sat down for like 10 minutes, I wouldn't be able to walk.
Mm.
So someone had, put me on to acupuncture. Okay. Now, at the time, this was like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. All the doctors, there's no medical research that says acupuncture does anything. It's a placebo. It's just something with your mind. You think you see it and it's doing something. But I'm telling you, I was a little mad at first because the pain from it, from putting it in the heel. Okay, imagine your heel with needles in it, right? But my acupuncturist was freaking awesome. She was just a blessing from heaven. So about 6 weeks of treatment. Matter of fact, whenever I would have a treatment from the acupuncture, usually be painful for about literally less than 20 seconds, and the pain would be gone for like 3 or 4 days at a time. And, she was like, you got to do this about twice a week for about 6 weeks. And on about the fifth week, I didn't need it anymore.
Mm.
So, and it follows that same principle of, the needle goes in, for those that don't know about acupuncture, it goes in to a point where it allows a mechanism in the body to go to those areas and use its own self, so to speak, to heal. You know
Okay.
what I mean? That's the best layman way term that I can explain it. So I've experienced that, and you know not to put all my business out there, but I've between me and my wife has had some health issues, and there was one doctor that was prescribing all these modern medicine to solve all these problems, and she too was suggested to go onto acupuncture and some other alternative means of doing healing, and it took a little bit longer, but she's on less medication now because of all the alternative meds
Mm.
than all the 20, 30 different medications that we had to go through to kind of test and see. And and it's funny because, you see all the commercials on TV, here's a prostate medication, may cause, butt ventriloquism, spine dysmorphia, you may self vomit and die. You know what I mean? But
So,
they, they don't want, but when it comes to like all the alternative stuff, it's like there's no commercials for it because bottom line is it doesn't make certain groups money without
yeah,
getting all
right.
deeper than that, right? Because we're a sports show, but whatever. But so like as far as Aaron Rodgers and his choice um to go the alternative route, I can't say that I dispute or disagree with him 100% because I think alternative routes are starting to prove that they work.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go like full Joe Rogan and like go to like South America and do the bone marrow stuff, and but there's starting to become validity in a lot of the alternative therapies modalities. You see it all the time in the Olympics. You see it like cupping. You've seen cupping, right?
Yeah.
You see the players in basketball using KT tape. Like this stuff wasn't
Mhm.
around like 10, 15 years ago. If you had a sore shoulder and something was broke, they shot you up with Novocaine and gave you Percocets and said go out and win game 7. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You don't need all that no more.
Yeah, the KT tape, I can attest to that. I was having issues. I've had issues with my knees for a long time. Um, and I was getting some tendonitis and swelling in my knee.
Mm.
And at the time, I was going to a chiropractor for my back,
Mm.
my neck and my back, actually, my neck and my back.
Like, that came my back.
um, oh Lord, tear it up over there. But while I was there at my chiropractor one time, I had I mentioned my knee was swollen or tendonitis, whatever was going on with the knee at the time. I mentioned it to him,
Right.
and they actually did some stuff for me, and they put some KT tape on it, and it made a huge difference. It made a huge difference, and just something to look into. Y'all just checking this out when y'all looking into alternative medicines and things like that, alternative methods of healing. KT tape, is not something that's going to put any enzymes in you. Ain't nothing but tape and it's pulling your skin and allowing the blood to get in there and start to
Do its thing.
heal. All right. I want to get into the new segment. Are you ready for the new segment?
That was an awesome transition.
Yeah, it was. It was. I didn't know any other way to get into it, but I just want to do it.
It's all good.
So the new segment is called Fo Fo Fo. And if you're not aware, that is a play on Moses Malone's words when he was asked what he thought about the NBA playoffs the year the Sixers won the championship. And he said, Fo Fo Fo, as in 4 games, all he said he was going to sweep the whole thing. And we've decided to turn that fo 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 into our fo fo fo. We used to call it the Mount Rushmore for reasons that we won't get into today. We don't call it Mount Rushmore anymore. We are a Philly show. We're based in Philly. We talk about Philly things first and foremost, and then everybody else can fall into place. We talk about fo greatest Philly athletes of all time, the 4 best.
For
One
for
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 the
each.
Sixers, yeah, each sport. One for the Sixers, one for the Flyers, one for the Phillies, one for the Eagles. Only one from each franchise gets put on. But each week we're going to be going through each franchise with our own fo, and we'll compare notes. We'll pick some people. We'll send the surveys to you, and you're going to pick our Philly fo. All right. So, do you want to reveal your fo first?
Sure, sir. No
As this
problem.
week we are actually doing we are doing the Flyers, the Philadelphia Flyers this week. So we have picked, and I have a certain way that I've picked my fo, and I'm sure Miguel has a certain way he's picked his fo, and I'm gonna let him explain his. I'll explain mine. Y'all do with it as you please, but at the end of the day, you're going to pick the final winner. Okay, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it now.
All right, so I'm starting going from top
Excellent.
from going four from going 4-1. So the person you see on your screen right now is a little bit of a sentimental pick. This is he was a goaltender for the Flyers from 1981, 82 to about 1986. The reason why sentimental pick, um, he was kind of the goalie after Bernie Perrant and right before Ron Hextall. Um, Actually, Bernie Perrant was his goalie coach. That's why he actually is wearing that mask, because that was one of the last versions of that mask in the 80s. Um, but Pelle Lindbergh tragically passed away in 1986. He was driving his Porsche. He had a very fondness for cars, driving them very fast as well. And unfortunately, he passed away at the tender age of 26. He crashed into the side of a school in New Jersey, and his blood alcohol level was 0.24, which is 2 or 3 times over the legal limit. But he was a great spirit, and also a pretty darn good hockey player. So again, only played a few years. Go. The stats were kind of ballooning in the 80s because that's when Gretzky came out. So goals against average, which I guess you can compare to like earn run average in baseball, kind of started becoming inflated in the 80s. So you had Gretzky, Messier, and all those guys. So although his goals against was like in the threes, twos, and high twos and threes, that was actually pretty good for that time. Um, Another thing is too that he his number was 31. The Flyers did not retire the number, but they have not given it to anybody on the Flyers. So he's the last person to actually wear the number 31. So number three on the list. Most people born and raised in Philadelphia know this guy as Bobby Clark. Um, he's probably Mr. Flyer, if you will. Played all 15 years in Philadelphia. Was on the first two Stanley Cup championship teams in the 70s, in 73 and 74. Played on what was called back then the LCB line, which was Bobby Clark, Bill Barber, and Reggie Leach. And there are his stats there. One, two, three-time MVP. Often led the league in assists, plus minus. Very rarely missed a game. Um, and is most notable for not having teeth when he held up the first Stanley. I had a hard time between number one and number two, but I think I had to lean towards this guy as number two, just because of how things kind of ended with his relationship with the Flyers. So some of you may have already guessed the great Eric Lindros. Um, what people, if you're not a real hockey fan per se, what people forget is that he was actually not drafted by the Flyers. He was actually drafted by Quebec, the Quebec Nordiques, and then there was some sort of trade with the Rangers, and then he's like, I'm not playing for Quebec. And I forget, he's from Canada, and I believe there was some sort of tension between Quebec and the city that he played for in Canada. So he sort of held out. There was this massive trade that happened between the Flyers and Quebec. So I believe the Flyers wound up giving up Peter Forsberg, Joe Sakic, and Claude Lemieux, I think, and like two other players. So Quebec wound up going to Colorado with those players that the Flyers had, and they wound up winning like 3 or 4 Stanley Cups.
Yeah, they were bad too. That
Huh?
that that Colorado Avalanche team was bad in the
Was
night.
bad until all of these 4 players showed up, and then they got
No,
passed.
I mean, as when they got there, they were tough. They were a tough squad.
Right.
The team
Right.
that won them, that I can remember them and the Red Wings, Detroit Red Wings would
And
always
okay,
battle it out.
those that was a rivalry that I thought was better than even Flyers Rangers or Eagles Cowboys, because that actually it would get bloody.
Hmm.
I think 2 or 3 players retired because of injury in that whole shebang. And that was the thing about Lindros too, is his injury history. You see him with these big hits here, but there were like 2 or 3 hits that are probably the most notorious hits against him of all time. One, little guy Darius Kasparaitis from Pittsburgh leaving his feet and launching into his throat. And then the one, Kevin Stevens, New Jersey Devils. It was Game 7 of a Eastern Conference final, and I still think it was a cheap shot hit. But Lindros with his head down as usual, coming across the ice, and Kevin Stevens elbows him and knocks him out of the game. And I always remember that game because I was working at the airport, and I was working during that game, and there was this bar between like Terminal A and Terminal B at the time. And there was this one security guard who was always funny. He just always had something to say. He was running up the terminal saying, "Eric Lindros is dead. They killed him."
Oh man.
I was like, "What?" And I just remember hearing all the Flyers fans that were getting off planes, and there was just this audible like it's happening again. You know what I mean? Um, but this little tale of the Eric Lindros tape, had to retire at the age of 33. He had severe post-concussion syndrome. And for those that don't know what that is, it's basically, imagine the worst headache that you ever had and not being able to ever get rid of it with the strongest medication possible. And also going through, he still has to this day sensitivity to light. Can't talk really loud, or that'll trigger headaches. So it's a real tragedy to see. Like, you see from '93 to almost 2000, um, one of the best players in the game at that time. Did win the MVP in '95, almost getting the Flyers to the Stanley Cup, until a certain goalie, Ron Hextall, forgot how to stop pucks from 90 yards out. Now
You sound like you're still bitter.
I'm not bitter. I just report the facts. You decide. Um, so that is Eric Lindros. So number one on the list, for me, for the Flyers, because I'm a goalie guy. I've always had a thing for goal. Well, let me rephrase that. I always loved goaltending. I played street hockey for 1 or 2 years. Um, and I just always loved putting on the pads and stuff like that. But Bernie Perrant, there's statistically, had probably 2 or 3 of the best years of any goaltender in history, and he did it with the Flyers. The last goaltender to help us win a Stanley Cup. Um, and it's funny because when you look at the Flyers, like, they've had better teams than the ones they had in the '70s. But one thing they were always missing in all of them was a goaltender. We were always a goaltender short.
Yeah.
Always a goaltender short.
Yeah,
Um,
when you think of some of the goaltenders they had that were dominant in the '90s,
mhm,
2000s, you think of like the Patrick Waugh.
mhm.
You think of what was my man in What was the goalie's name for the Rangers?
Mike
Lundqvist?
Richter
Mike Richter.
from
Mike Richter.
Flowertown, PA.
Mike Richter. There were some good ones out there. Who was the goalie for the Devils? Played for a while.
Martin Brodeur.
Martin Brodeur. Yeah.
And you know what's funny? So the Flyers had a chance, right? They Mike Richter, Curtis Joseph, Patrick Waugh, John Van Briesbrook, and um, Dominic Hasek were all free agents the same year. And the Flyers lowballed and went for John Van Briesbrook. He was the oldest goaltender at the time. He was like 37, 38. But they had the chance and the finances to get a Mike Richter, a Patrick Waugh. And I don't understand. Like, I never understood the Flyers for never going out and either drafting or getting a goaltender. That was every time. When you think of a team that's gone to a Stanley Cup since Bernie Perrant, in 1980, the Flyers had some schmucks, Pete Peters and Phil Meyer, right? Um, 85, they did have Pelle Lindbergh, but he was a rookie and then unfortunately passed away. 87, the Flyers had Ron Hextall, who was a rookie then and then started becoming injury prone. And then 95, we had Garth Snow, Ron Hextall, who was older. Uh, uh, Jesus. The Stanley Cup in 2010, we had some guy named Leighton and another guy that I don't remember.
Was it Garth Snow?
Huh?
Wasn't it Garth Snow?
No, Gar Snow played in a 95 against Detroit.
Oh,
So
wow.
they,
My timing is way off. I was 15 years early. Yeah.
right. We had Brian Boucher for a
Brian
run,
Boucher.
Robert Esch for a little bit of a run. But it was like, when you look at all those goalies, it's like Brian Boucher caught lightning in a bottle for one playoff series and then just fizzled out. Robert Esch, same, like all these goalies would catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, I was embarrassed in that Stanley Cup in 2010 against the Blackhawks because it ended with a shot to the side of the net that hit off the goalie and went in the net. It's like,
We got swept in that one too, didn't we?
no, we got swept in the Detroit one in '95.
Oh, okay.
That
Okay.
one, the one against the Blackhawks, we lost 4-2.
Okay.
But again, like look at the numbers from Bernie Perrant. In '74, he averaged less than 2 goals a game giving up, and he had 12 shutouts in back-to-back years. Won the Vezina, which is like the um, hockey version of the Cy Young for goalies, so to speak. Um, but he was a great goaltender. And it's sad. There's a video of his last game. He actually got a blade in his eye.
Oh,
So you remember his mask, and he had the two eye holes, right?
right.
So it looks like an innocent play, but there was a player coming across the middle or across the goal crease, and his stick was kind of high, and all you see was this, and then he just goes like this, and he just goes right into the locker room. He drops everything and goes in the locker room, but it caused permanent damage in his left eye. He never played again. So
Wow.
he had to retire just about immediately.
Wow. That's amazing.
Um,
Your sports knowledge is incredible.
oh, stop it, stop it.
I'm still listen. I'm still amazed by what you did 2 weeks ago when you ran down the whole '69 Mets lineup. I'm still amazed by. I'm still telling people about that.
You, you're surprised I knew about Don Clendenin
Yes,
and Tommy Agee and a young Nolan Ryan
actually, I am. Yes.
and Tug McGraw. I forgot Tug McGraw was on that squad.
See, he knows. He even look. He knows all the people on the team.
Stop it.
Well,
So
that's Miguel. That's your 4 for 4. You had Perrant, Lindros, Clark, and Pell Lindbergh.
Pelly,
Pelle Lindbergh. Excuse me, Pelle Lindbergh. And your 4 for 4 is you had some stats up there and some good stuff up there, pictures and montages and all like that. So you ready for my 4 for 4?
go for it, man.
My 4 for 4 looks a little something like this. Yes, no montages, no statistics, no, not even a picture. I'm just giving you names. Okay, I'm giving you names. I'm giving you explanations. So here's the name and the explanation. So number one, Bobby Clark, right? Mr. Like Miguel said, Mr. Flyer, probably he's considered one of the greatest flyers of all time, if not the greatest flyer of all time. He also worked in the front office. As we know, the Flyers like to stay true to their history, uh, up until recently, for the most part, right? Number two, Ron Hextall. Hextall is on my list because why? Because he was pretty much the first goalie that I knew. I like the fact that he scored from one goal to the other and did it one time in the playoffs. But what I most liked about Hextall is that he liked to fight. You don't see goalies getting into fights too often. Hextall liked to fight, and sometimes he probably just look for people to punch on so he can fight. Number three, my list isn't in no particular order, but number three is I went a different way with mine. Now, our stipulations for this, as we have discussed, is you have to be a part of the organization, or you have to play for the organization for at least 4 years. Ed Snyder did not play a game for the Flyers, to the best of my knowledge. But Ed Snyder was an owner of the Flyers for many, many years. He owned part of the Sixers too, and as Miguel reminded me, for Comcast. It was Comcast Spectacor actually. Ed Snyder, I cannot think of like the spectrum without thinking of Ed Snyder. I cannot think of the Flyers without thinking Ed Snyder. I can't think of Ed Snyder without thinking of the Flyers. They go hand in hand with me. You may not know who Ed Snyder is, but here in Philly, everybody knows who Ed Snyder is. Okay. And number four, last but certainly not least, probably one of my favorite all-time Flyers, just because, as Miguel and I discussed before the show, he was just a real down-to-earth, cool guy. And that's Bernie Perrant. He was played goalie. He was the goalie for the back. He was the goalie for the back-to-back Stanley Cup winners.
Mhm.
Um, he had like a heavy French accent. He'll to this day he'll talk to you and have a conversation with you like you've known him, like y'all known each other forever. I can attest to it. I met him and we just talked, and I didn't realize who he was at first until I heard him talk, and I was like, wait a minute, I know this guy. I know who he is. And it was Bernie Perrant, and we were just talking, shooting the breeze, like we were cool for the last 13 years. And that's my first time meeting the man. So
And it's funny because I think most of that team, because I actually met a Flyer who played along in front of him actually because he was an offensive winger, Bob Kelly, who was called the Hound. He had come to one of the elementary schools in the previous job I was at. And right before the setup, like he was just, we were just talking like the same way. That just kind of like, he was throwing names out there, and I knew them, and he was kind of impressed with how much I did know. I was like, I was a boring kid. I watched a lot of TV and a lot of old videos. So, uh, but he was just really, like you said, kind of down to earth, and was like looking to continue the conversation. You know what I mean? So, definitely some good guys.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple guys that I've met through my workings and stuff like that, and Bernie Perrant is probably right there with some of the best people that I've met.
He's got
Um,
a really cool accent.
yeah, the accent is very heavy,
I'd like to
very
tell
heavy.
you what I'm drinking today. He sounds
Yeah,
like
he's definitely like the guy that you would want to have a beer with. Not a drink. You would want to have a beer with him. Not a like a Jack and Coke, and then like you want to have a beer with Bernie Perrant. I'm just saying, it just seems like I don't know. Bernie's a cool dude.
yeah.
So what's going to happen now is Miguel and I. Actually, I do have a quick funny flyer story if you want to hear it,
Are you
Miguel.
going to tell that story?
I'll tell the story. I'll tell the story. So
Oh God.
there was a time when I worked for a company in which where I would go into the Flyers locker room, Sixers locker room for post game, pre game, whatever the case may be. And with hockey, with the Flyers, and I don't know if this is something across the league or if this is just a Flyers thing. I don't know, but I was in the Flyers dressing room. In this room is not where they changed their clothes, but is where they took off their pads and stuff like that and left it in there for, I guess, the people to get in and why, whatever they did. All their equipment and stuff will be left in this room. So I'm in here with all the reporters, all the Philadelphia media, and all like that. And I don't remember who they were talking to. It might have been like Claude Giroux or somebody. I don't remember who they were talking to. But if right here, the camera is the person they were talking to. There's a big crowd around them. I'm in the back of that crowd because whatever my job is doesn't require me to be in the crowd and up front and all like that. And as this interview is happening, as this press conference is happening, I hear something crash on the floor, something like hard plastic crash on the something fell, and you can hear it throughout the whole room. It was just loud, but nobody thought nothing of it, until I felt it settle on top of my foot. So I looked down to see what this was on my foot, and it was somebody's protective cup just chilling on top of my foot. And what I mean by protective cup, for those that may not know what I'm talking about, men tend to wear a cup to protect their jewel. I was going to say gender. Protect their jewel, their family jewels. Y'all know what the family jewels are.
Well, I mean, depending on the sport, it might protect your gender. I'm just
Like,
saying.
well, and you wear it so like if you were to get hit with a hockey puck or baseball or something, it's not going to hurt as bad. I'm not going to say it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt as bad. It's going to protect you, hopefully keep you out of the hospital, whatever the case may be. Well, that piece of equipment settled on my foot, and I immediately kicked it off my foot. I was like, ugh, kicked it off my foot. If you were watching that particular game that day, that post game show, you might have heard me say "ugh" in the background because somebody's cup was sitting on my foot, and that was disgusting.
I'm gonna try to search YouTube for that video.
I couldn't even tell you what year it was.
Okay, well,
So yeah, it was no later than 2012.
oh man,
So it might have been like 2011, 2012. But I mean, I doubt you'll find. If you find it, I'll give you $20. But I doubt you'll find that. I doubt you'll find it. But that's my foe. Bobby Clark, Ron Hextall, Ed Snyder, and Bernie Perrant. What's going to happen now is Miguel and I are going to pick one person from, he's going to pick a person from his list. I'm going to pick a person from my list. We don't know if it's going to be the same person or not, but we're going to pick one person from the Flyers organization to go on our foe board. If we, and then I had to think about it. And then what's going to happen is we'll send out a survey to you, the viewer, the consumer, and you are going to select who's going to go on our foe board to represent the Flyers. So I'll go first since you went first presenting your I'll go first in saying who I want from my foe board to be on the overall foe Philly athletes board. I'm going with Bernie Perrant. I think Bernie Perrant is a good representation. I think he is very well liked amongst the city of Philadelphia. He's probably at this point the most well liked former Flyer out of the whole organization. The only other one I would think is I forgot his name. He's got the red hair. Is it Chris Tarian? Was it Chris Tarian?
the bushy hair,
Yeah,
Scott Hartnell.
Scott Hartnell. I was Scott Hartnell. But then there was another guy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Bernie Perrant is my selection. Miguel, what's your selection from your list? You had a good list too.
I mean, because I prefer goaltenders as well. But I think I think I'd lean towards Bobby Clark just because I don't know. I wouldn't say that he was as well liked post career because he was the general manager that put
Mhm.
all those other Stanley Cup teams together without a goaltender, and I still don't get it. But he was there from the beginning. One of the first draft picks when the Flyers were formed in 1967. Ed Snyder was a good one though. That kind of like because he kind of created he helped create the atmosphere for the Flyers
Mhm.
from beginning up until his passing. You know that like
Yeah.
he was Mister Flyer. You know if you want to use that term, but as far as player, I think Bobby Clark, kind of would be the man.
Absolutely. Bobby Clark definitely deserves a nod. I think Bernie Perrant deserves a nod. Um, but of course, we're going to let the people decide what they think. I'm looking down because I'm looking up Ed Snyder, died in 2016. Um, I feel like when the spectrum was knocked down, I feel like a big piece of Ed Snyder died that day. Matter of fact, if I remember correctly, he was there to speak at the demolition. And if you remember, I was actually there that day. It didn't go as planned. It didn't go down at first. It took a little bit for it to go down. But I say that because if I remember correctly, Ed Snyder didn't even stick around to see it demolished. Like he could not bear to see that
Tolerated, yeah.
demolished. He had to leave, and I can understand that. Something that you built, something that you have such these great memories that you had probably the biggest hand in creating, and now all of a sudden it's going to go away.
I still don't think they should have tore it down. Personally,
I
it's
don't think they should have either.
because it was. I mean, it served itself when they had the Philadelphia Phantoms there, and it still was serviceable for events.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
it
know.
was. I went to the last Sixers game there. I actually took my dad there. It was a game against the Chicago Bulls. I think it was back when Derrick Rose was a rookie. I think he was a rookie that year.
Oh wow.
So that's how long ago that was. But that was something I was able to do for my dad. He took me to many games there at the Spectrum. So I was able to take him to one at the Spectrum, and it was amazing because I can remember when the Wells Fargo was called the Wells Fargo Center now, but at the time it was called the First Union Center when it was first built. And my dad, I think I went in there. I think it was Hoop It Up. I was playing in Hoop It Up, and the tournament was in the parking lot of the Spectrum and all that.
Mhm.
And they had the excuse me, the First Union Center open. Core State Center. It was a Core State Center, it was a Core State Spectrum or something like that. They had the Core State Center open for you to go and look around. So
Okay.
after we were done playing, my dad took me over there. He had already went, and he said, "When you walk in, think of the spectrum, right? Have the spectrum in mind." And when I walked in there and I saw how big this was as compared to the spectrum, I was like, "Wow, this is crazy." And when I took my dad to that last game at the Spectrum, I walked into the Spectrum with the Wells Fargo Center in mind, and the Spectrum was so tiny compared to what the Wells Fargo
Yeah.
Center. It was so tiny.
But I mean, it's still. I believe at its max, it could hold like just over 20,000.
It was. I mean, it was old though. That's the only problem. Like I'm sure they could restore it and do some things, but
Well, and it was funny because a lot of artists said that the sound in that arena was just phenomenal. That's why like your
yeah,
Billy Joel's, you know,
Springsteen.
they would
Mhm.
always perform there because the acoustics in there were just phenomenal.
And that's what it was made for. It was the show, the what was called the America's
American
Showplace.
Showplace, yep, American
Yeah,
Showplace.
it was one of the greatest places to see a concert, to have a concert, to go to a show. I remember going to the circus there. I remember
Dude, that
going
was my.
to,
I went. That was the first event I went to. Was Ringling Brothers in fourth grade, and I
wow.
just remember. All I remember was like people pay money to see this, and then I remember I remember the elephants just taking humongous dumps around the corners, And every like 10 minutes, we were like, "Ew!"
And that just made it all worth it, didn't it?
And then my second event was a house show for WWF. I don't know if I could say that anymore due to legalities.
But
I'll
I know
do
what you're talking about.
I'll do with the WWE now when they do with the old videos. I went to a WWE event, and I remember the event was Big Daddy Cool Diesel when he thought he was cool versus Bob Backlund.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was
Was that
bad.
the one where Bob Backlund beat him?
No, no. That was this is when Bob Backlund started like losing his. He came back and
Uh-huh.
started losing his marbles. You know, he
Right,
played the crazy role.
right.
And I think Bret Hart was against Shawn Michaels that day, and Razor Ramon I think was fighting against Doink.
Doink the clown.
Doink the clown.
Gotta love that. Well, that's our four.
Alpha,
We'll
alpha,
be
alpha.
sending that survey out to you, and you can definitely vote on that. Please vote on it because you're picking our four. Um, but if you are familiar with the Check Swing podcast, you know around this time is when Miguel gets to stump me. And you look on his face. He has pleasure. He gets pleasure in stumping me.
You're gonna get this on the first try. I made it easy for you, unless I didn't.
80. I'm trying to think who won the 81 World Series. That wasn't the year the Orioles beat the Phillies, was it?
No, that was '83. This was the year after the Phillies won their first World Series. It was a strike shortened year, so it was actually the first time that trivia question, if it ever comes up, it's actually the first time they had wild card teams. It's because what they did was they had a like a 32-day strike, so they lost a month. So what they decided to do was have a first half champion and a second half champion. And I believe the team that
First a first half league champion.
yeah they had so they what they did was rather that they were trying to test something and try to make it competitive at the same time. So
Mhm.
they at the point where the strike started, they said, okay, whoever is in the lead in each of their divisions, you're the champion, right? You're the champion of your division. And then the second half was a totally different, totally new season, so to speak. So you had the first half champion and the second half champion. And you know what really sucked about that? Is that the team with the best record in baseball was the Cincinnati Reds, but they were not in first place in either half, so they didn't make the playoffs.
Mm.
So that and the Phillies were the first half champions, and Dallas Green was upset because he's like, we got nothing to play for the rest of the season, so we're not like going to have that competitive edge going into the playoffs. So that's why he said the system sucked, and we just should have just picked it up where we left off and all that good stuff. Um, So in that season, the Phillies played the Expos in the wild card round, and then the team that this gentleman played for, I believe, played against the Atlanta Braves, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the first person I was thinking of, I don't think they ever played for the A's or the Orioles.
Hold on. So the teams were Atlanta Braves, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the San Francisco Giants, and the Oakland A's. I was
Oh,
actually
that's Giants. Okay.
surprised that he played for the A's. I did not know that he played for the A's.
And three-time manager of the year.
Yep. Not that this clue will help, but on the night that Henry Aaron hit his 715th home run, this gentleman was the on deck hitter. And he was also a Philly killer in the playoffs when the Phillies won like three straight National League East Division titles, but couldn't get past the Dodgers or the Reds.
I
And I think
wanted I wanted to say Don Mattingly, but I know that's too early. There's a piece of me that wants to say Joe Madden.
nope, both are really wrong. Actually, remember Don Mattingly was a Yankee all his life. He only played for one team.
Okay, then Don Mattingly's not who I'm thinking.
Oh, because the manager of the okay, my bad. Okay, because of the manager stuff. Got
The
it.
man the manager got me.
Right.
And Kirk Gibson was never a manager, right?
Yes, he was. He managed the Diamondbacks.
It's not Kirk Gibson.
No, sir.
Damn, 81 World Series with the Dodgers.
With the Dodgers, you got it.
Two-time Silver Slugger, two-time All-Star. He was an NLCS MVP. So he won the NLCS MVP against the Phillies, right?
Yes,
What position did he play?
he was a left fielder.
I,
And he
I
played.
know I'm going to be mad when you tell me who it is. Three-time Manager of the Year. uh, two times, and he played for six teams. Give me the teams again. Give me the teams as they appear on this graphic.
Atlanta Braves. Yeah, because they had two jerseys. Atlanta Braves, then the Los Angeles Dodgers, San Francisco Giants.
That's not how they
Oakland.
appear. That's not how they appear on this graphic.
No, all right. So here's what the issue is. Those first three 12s,
Uh
the Braves had three jerseys in the beginning of his career.
oh, so they're all the. Oh, okay,
So that's why
okay,
sometimes it can be confusing. Where it's like, well, that was the Phillies, and then they went. You know how like when they go from the burgundy to the red.
yeah,
So
yeah.
right. So it's
Okay,
actually the first three are from the Atlanta Braves. They were just the three different jerseys.
so that's the Braves, the Dodgers, the Giants, and the A's.
Yes.
The Braves, the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Braves. So I really need to focus on the Braves, Dodgers, and Giants. But
All right.
probably
I'll give you a clue. The A's and the Giants were probably the last 2 years of his career. They're throwaway
uh,
years.
so I need to focus on the Dodgers because the Braves. I'm gonna just assume I didn't know them for the Braves because the only first Braves team I remember were the '90s Braves. Didn't know anything about the Braves before
Right. And most of America didn't either. So don't feel.
that. The Dodgers. Who was on the Dodgers that was a manager? Mattingly.
You
No,
said that
I said
already.
Mattingly. Who was on the Braves? Who was on the Dodgers that's a manager? Oh, I'm gonna be so mad. I feel like I know this one.
So let me see something. I'm
Trying to
trying to think. Should I give you the teams that he's managed? Because then you might get it.
Yeah, give me the teams he's managed when he was manager of the year.
When he was manager of the year. Let's see. As a manager,
Like I know Dusty was Dusty Baker ever the manager of the year? Is
say that.
Dusty Baker?
Say that name again.
Dusty Baker?
Got it.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dusty Baker first too.
What have I told you time and time again? If it's the first instinct, say it because when you just blurt it out, just like you did, you get it right.
Yeah, I might because you know why I was gonna say because three times manager of the year, I was thinking of Dusty Baker right there. But then I didn't know, and I'm kind of embarrassed. I didn't know Dusty Baker. I didn't know who Dusty Baker played for, and I never looked it up.
Gotcha.
I never looked it up, so I never knew who he played. I was just thinking about it last week when they were in the play. I was like, what did Dusty Baker play for? And I wonder. I never hear about who he played for.
Well, I knew he was a Dodger because he was a Philly killer. I always forget about the Braves because again he was on deck when he was watching Henry Aaron hit the 715. Um, but I did not know he played for the Giants or the A's, and those were like the last two teams. So I think that picture with him at the A's was like 1986. He only played like maybe 50, 60 games. It was just that was
It
it
was
for
like
him.
that was like the day before he retired.
Right. And he did pretty much what Reggie Jackson did. He after leaving Atlanta, he pretty much stayed in California. Um,
Probably a smart move. And it looks like that picture with the Dodgers is at Veterans Stadium.
yeah, he's watching somebody else kill the Phillies. That's what he's doing there.
It could be in Cincinnati though.
No, that's definitely
That is definitely
that
Philadelphia.
is definitely a veteran stadium fence. That's right field
Right.
with that stupid tarp in the
Uh huh.
bullpen. Yeah, that's definitely Philadelphia.
Because I know,
Cincinnati,
but Cincinnati had the same thing.
no, they had no. Cincinnati had a straight gray wall with no plexiglass like that.
Did okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Philly had the plexiglass, which was unique. It still looked like crap, but it was unique because no one else had.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember Philly having the plexiglass until the '92 World Series, to the '92 playoffs.
They actually started. They always had the plexiglass. Matter of fact, that fence, it from 71 to like 74, it was just all plexiglass
Really?
from
Okay.
top to bottom. And remember the I don't know if you remember, but they used to actually have in right and left. They had two full length scoreboards. So you couldn't even. There were no seats technically. There were seats back there, but they were covered.
Right. And I thought that happened in the '90s.
No, that was the original stadium. It actually had two long
Because
boards that went from.
here's what I remember. I remember the two big boards up at the top.
Oops.
What is going on? Actually, I guess we could take that down. Actually, I remember the two big boards at the top. Right, the Coke, the sign with the big screen with the Coke sign underneath that was color, and then they had the one next to it that wasn't color. Right, and what else I remember is behind the outfield walls on both sides were the banners of the teams from the National League or from like the conference that they played. That's what I remember, and that was on the tarp. And then I remember when we went to the playoffs that year. I want to say it's when we went to the World Series, or maybe when the playoffs started. They changed it up, or maybe they just made it look cleaner. I don't remember. I just remember it when I was a kid. I remember it looking different to me from what I was used to seeing.
Right. So let me show you. All right. So this is what the original mock-up of Veteran Stadium looked like. So right here, you have these two really long scoreboards here, and this is
Okay.
the original plexiglass here. In the first 2 years, there actually used to be a Liberty Bell with an actual Billy pin, so it would like try to swing, but it was kind of a lemon, so it would swing and then not swing back. So they got rid of that. There was actually waterfalls in center field too.
Wow.
Um,
Never knew
in a
that.
typical Philly fashion, they're like, we need more seats, so we're going to get rid of the waterfall. So yeah, so these seats were all covered up here. Then around 1980, they got rid of this scoreboard because they wanted more seats. And then in '85, they got rid of this scoreboard and then added the Fanavision up here.
Right.
And then they extended the super boxes all the way across because there were no super boxes until like '86.
Okay.
And then that's pretty much how it was until they demolished it. I hated the fact that they added the blue seats. I think it took away from. the
I
original.
liked it. I liked it only because I felt like the red and yellow seats didn't match anything as far as any team was concerned that played there.
Uh,
And then you can actually, when they were showing an overhead shot, you could distinguish Veteran Stadium from what was it? Where Cincinnati played. I want to say it wasn't Joe Robbie, but it was
Riverfront Stadium.
Riverfront Stadium, and because they look the same from above. I think the same designer actually did them both.
They did, but they didn't. Again, it's that wall because let me show you because Riverfront had an all gray wall, and because I thought Riverfront Stadium looked more like St. Louis to me.
Okay.
Um, but this
All I
is
hear
this
is you clicking. I don't know what's going
this is Riverfront. This is Riverfront.
on.
So they just had a real plain gray wall,
I
but
see what you're saying. Okay.
right. So yeah, but there was no plexi. But they did have
Right.
like that. So St. Louis had that same setup with those box seats there, but theirs was blue.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Gotcha. But they had the cookie cutter just like we did.
everybody did. So
Yeah.
the only one I think that didn't have a cookie cutter was who was it? Yankee Stadium was redone in '76. Kansas City was AstroTurf, but it wasn't really cookie cutter because they had they still have the waterfalls out there.
And
Uh,
and Kansas City had Arrowhead, so they didn't have to have
right.
the.
Well, no, no, they were they had two different stadiums. Arrowhead was for the Chiefs. It wasn't a
That's what I'm saying. So the
right,
Royal Stadium didn't have to be a cookie cutter.
right. I'm trying to think of stadiums. Pittsburgh was cookie cutter. Cincinnati, St. Louis.
There's a lot of cookie cutters. Anything that had AstroTurf was a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Anything.
Baltimore kept their stadium for a long time. Chicago White Sox kept their stadium for a long time. Cubs too, but yeah. So yeah, brief
Well,
trip in the stadiums.
I think it's time for us to end the show.
Okay.
I think it's time for us to end the show because we're just starting to have a conversation now.
Sure.
But with all that we said being said, we want to thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Check Swing Podcast. Be sure to go over to our YouTube channel. That's the New Twist Radio YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/New Twist Radio, and check out all of our previous episodes as well as any other show that airs on newtwistradio.com. And for all that being said, for Miguel and myself, I want to thank y'all for participating, and you'll be getting the survey from us very, very soon. And if you're somebody that's new to the Check Swing Podcast and you want to get the survey, make sure you hit us up at what's the email address, Miguel? It's checkswingshow@gmail.
Yes.
checkswingshow@gmail.com, or just send a message to New Twist Radio on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we'll get you hooked up. All right. With all that being said, we thank you again for listening to the Check Swing Podcast. We are gonna get up out of here because it's about that time, and we'll talk to y'all next week. Peace out.